Howdy folks, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I am your host, the Mighty Bjorn, and today for you folks, I have a brand new Dungeons and Dragons video. And this one's actually kind of inspired by a video I previously have done on mercenary companies within a Dungeons and Dragons campaign. And that's because one of my regular viewers apparently has been sharing around some of my videos, and he actually sent this to me. And I thought about players as subcontractors. That's what we're going to dive into today. Essentially, your players as mercenaries or subcontractors to a mercenary company. But before I get into this whole thing, I want to just take a few moments and I just want to say thank you to everyone who has been supporting my channel. The likes, the comments, the subscriptions, the shares, obviously. Helps out my YouTube channel, bumps me up in the YouTube algorithm, and it gets my content out there for more viewers. Gets people thinking more about their D&D campaigns or Warhammer 40k Wrath and Glory, whatever it is I cover around here. Also, I want to take a moment to give a special shout out to my Patreon supporters. Their additional support is much greatly appreciated as it provides the channel with a little bit of a budget. With that being said, for anybody that'd be interested in providing my channel additional support, there is a link down below in the video description to my Patreon page. It's a great place to go, get updates about content that's going to be coming out to my YouTube channel. But anyway, let's get into it. And I think realistically the first place to start is contracts. Much like before when I discussed things with mercenaries and contracts, the contracts are going to be directly to the mercenary company itself versus essentially the contractee, I guess you could say, which would be the Duke, the Baron, the King, whoever's hiring the mercenary company. In this case, the contract is going to outline several different things, requirements, etc., for the subcontractors or the mercenaries that are part of the mercenary company. The next thing, too, that it will outline is any next of kin. I would suspect, and this is just suspicion, understand, that if you die in the service of a mercenary company, that your next of kin would receive your payments or payment, however that works. Much like it does for pirates, which was actually legitimate, so that's what makes me suspect that it would be the same for mercenary companies as well. Die in the service of the mercenary company, at least your family gets a little bit of something out of it. The next thing the contract would also include is any penalties for ending the contract early. Also, it could also outline any fees for a subcontractor to buy their contract out. So if they want to end their contract early, they may have to provide some kind of payment or something along those lines to essentially buy their contract out so they can separate from the mercenary company. Now with the contract, it will outline pay. More than likely, the pay will be essentially a monthly payment. It won't be all up front. The monthly payment will range a certain price of gold, anywhere from, I've seen 10 gold being kind of like the low end, but you could get up to 15, 20 gold per month. And basically, I would equate this to the level of the character. Now, I know that doesn't sound like a lot of gold, but realistically, the cost of living was actually fairly cheap during the time period, and a person could probably actually live a month off of just a few gold, at least the average person. So actually this would be 20, like say 20 gold. You'd be actually getting paid very well. And on the flip side of that, that would be the equivalent of being an officer in a paid militia or military at the time frame. Actually probably better than an officer, to be honest. Now, when it comes to their pay, there's probably certain things they're going to have to pay for themselves, which I'll get into here in a little bit. Finally, in general terms, yeah, you're working for a mercenary company. You're not dungeon diving too much. So when it comes to treasure, Yeah, very rarely, if ever. That being said, if a mercenary unit so happens to be traveling from point A to point B and comes across a dungeon, well, they may decide to go dungeon diving, and thus, what would happen is the treasure, any treasure collected, would essentially be piled together, and that treasure would be divvied out in shares, probably equal shares, with the officer getting, any officer is probably getting more than one share, like a share and a half or two shares of the treasure. Much like pirates in that regard. And that's just a theory. That's something I would do in my Dungeons and Dragons campaign. Now, when it comes to supplies, the players will have a set amount of supplies every month that they are given. And it will be basically low end supplies, maybe rations, some rope, things of that nature. Nothing extravagant. That's where their pay comes into play. If they want, say, a good quality wine, they're going to have to pay for that themselves. That's not really going to be provided for. But there might be some special instances where that is provided for, say, for a celebration or something. Now, the next thing I want to discuss is camping life. Now, I do have a video that I will be discussing a bit about camping life in itself. But essentially, what it comes down to is you're going to spend, your players will spend a majority of their time, more than likely, camping somewhere under tents. Now, with that being said, the nice thing is they won't always have to provide security for said camp, but at times they will be on guard duty. So, unlike when it comes to adventuring, where basically your players are going to have to take shifts to provide security for the group, in this case, some of the other mercenaries within the camp will provide security, and thus all the players might actually get a good night's sleep. However, camp life is not always the best. Think about fall and winter months when it starts getting pretty cold, or when it's constantly raining in the spring, then they're essentially, living in tents. Now, maybe if they're lucky, they might have some type of moment where they're going to be staying at a fort. Maybe they're doing garrison duty, so they might get lucky and have some kind of low-end quarters at a fort, or maybe they'll be staying at a barn that's local, something along those lines. So there might be times where the players actually does have a chance to have a roof over their head, but probably more often than not, they will be sleeping under a tent. Now, I was talking about requirements a bit ago for under the contract section. Requirements could vary, such as if they're part of a cavalry unit, they'll will have to supply their own horse, saddle, and horse armor. And that actually might be a requirement. Now, if it is a requirement, there might be an option outlined, which would also be outlined in the contract, that the players could buy horses from the mercenary company itself. Now, in that case, per se, if they don't have enough money to pay for the horse up front, they will be given the horse, and then paying for the horse will be docked from their pay. Other requirements could include, say, tools for a siege. If it's a siege unit, you might have to provide your own tools. Pretty much things of that nature. And that's going to vary from mercenary unit to mercenary unit and what the mercenary units do, are, and what kind of services they provide. No matter which way you look at it, at the end of the day, it comes up to the mercenary captain himself of what the requirements is for his mercenary unit. Now, when it comes to travel, well, this is one part that's going to hamper players as subcontractors or as mercenaries versus being actual adventurers. When it comes to actual adventurers, they pretty much decide to go wherever they want to go when they want to go. As part of a mercenary company, though, you're pretty much under where the mercenary unit is going to go. And more than likely, they're going to go into hostile war zones because that's where the money is. That is where the business is. So that's just something to think about itself, where you're going to be spending quite a bit of time inside a war zone or inside hostile territory, whatever it is you're going to be doing. With that being said, there may be times too where you're going to end up having to fight losing fights or even fight better equipped opponents. Especially, you might come up on a battlefield as a supporting unit, and you find out the enemy has hand cannons. So that wouldn't be fun, especially if you don't have any ranged weapons yourself. No matter what, at the end of the day, it's all about fulfilling the mercenary company, fulfilling its contract to whoever they are contracted to, which in most cases they will be contracted to probably a count, a duke, a baron, or a king and queen. And thus they have to fulfill those contracts, and they will try to get those contracts fulfilled by any means necessary. Now, I did mention travel a bit ago, and one issue too with travel that needs to be thought about, this is more for like a notation for the dungeon masters, is where are the characters traveling to and what are their laws? Because in certain areas of the world at certain time periods, there was an outright ban on mercenaries. And this could end up leading to imprisonment or maybe even death by hanging if said law enforcement of those areas finds out that the players and the group that they are with is mercenaries. Of course, as a notation, more than likely the mercenary captain may be aware of those places and will try to avoid those areas at all possible. Now, one thing I also outlined too was pay a bit ago, and I also want to bring up specialist roles within a mercenary company, because these specialist roles may pay additional money for their role within the mercenary company, such as wizards. Clerics would be another one. Rangers may get paid a little bit more because of their skills. That being said, those are different types of characters too that may be in a bit more danger than the average character or fighter within the mercenary company. Next thing I kind of want to outline too is when it comes to downtime. Don't get me wrong, players in a mercenary company will have downtime. They may not have a whole lot of time to hang out in the tavern, but there will be moments of downtime even within camp. But with that being said, more often than not, they are probably going to be working to try and get that mercenary contract fulfilled. Because, well, once they get the contract fulfilled, that mercenary company is free to move on or negotiate a new contract for maybe higher pay. Wink, wink, nod, nod, as players can do that themselves. Either ways, at the end of the day, your players may find that the life of a mercenary is actually pretty appealing and actually decide to stop being a subcontractor and being an actual mercenary within that mercenary company, or they may end up deciding to start their own mercenary company. But either ways, folks, I think I'm going to wrap up today's video at that. Hopefully you all enjoyed it, and if you got any questions, comments, concern, you know where to leave them down below in the comment section. Either way, folks, I'm going to leave it at that. Hopefully you all enjoyed this video. Thank you very much for tuning in, and have yourselves a wonderful day. Hey, folks, I actually just want to take this time right now just to kind of discuss Kingdom Come Deliverance and Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. I mean, for any of you folks that are like really interested in role-playing games, especially if you're interested in like the life of a mercenary, you actually might want to really check out Kingdom Come Deliverance with the Band of Bastards DLC. Honestly, that was my favorite DLC for Kingdom Come Deliverance. I can't really talk highly enough about it. But it does kind of give you a little bit of a peering peering into the life of a mercenary. Good Lord, English is challenging. But either ways, both games are great games. You should definitely check them out if this would be your cup of tea. I always call these games medieval life simulator. They're just downright fun and yet challenging and it makes you really feel like you're living in Bohemia in the 1400s. Either way, folks, I'm actually finally going to leave it at that and get the heck out of here. Have yourselves a great day.